Hi, I'm James, and today on the desk we have this, which is the HP 14s-fq2000 SA laptop. This is a fairly typical HP chassis, and so we're going to start by getting the back removed from the machine. And what we can see, first of all, is that one of these rubber feet has already been damaged. However, the adhesive strip that goes underneath it is still complete, and this top one here is all normal. So what we're going to do is, first of all, just use a pry tool to pick under these strips and get them removed, because underneath them we have the hidden screws, and same at the top here. We just use a metal one there because it's easier to get that under the actual adhesive. And with that done, we now want to take our Phillips, I believe this is a 00 size screwdriver bit, and we're going to work around and remove all of the screws from the base of the machine. As we take these out, we are going to just position them off to the side in the same arrangement that they came out, so we get everything back in the original place. We have a couple different screw sizes in the base of this machine. So with screws undone, we're now going to turn over the laptop, open up the display, and then we are going to take our pry tool and press this in to the gap between the palm rest and the base. And what we want to do is just gently press this in, just enough to start releasing the clips . It shouldn't require excessive force, just sort of press it in and then work along to release all of these. We always use a plastic pry tool for this because it minimises the risk of damage to the plastics. We can see here there's already a little break by the audio jack, but that appears to be user damage, so it was like that before we started with this machine. Switching just to a slightly sharper pry tool. And basically you just want to push out the base slightly so that it disengages the clips. We do the same down the other side. And with the front and sides done, we can now turn the laptop back over and then lift the base from front to back. And remove it like so. Once inside, our first job is to disconnect the battery, and to do that we need to go around and remove the 5 screws which hold it in place. The battery is connected here with a direct connection, so to disconnect it, basically you just completely remove it. Obviously this then applies for if you want to replace the battery. Simply do this and then fit your new one in the same way. So with screws removed, we can then simply lift the battery to disconnect it, and it is now safe to work on the rest of the machine. So to get access to the screen panel, we're going to remove the top panel from the laptop. It may be possible to do this with it in place, but because we have adhesive strips and the bezel extends down to the bottom, it really is easier to do things, and it only takes a few minutes more to completely remove the base of the laptop from the screen. And so what we're going to do is, first of all, we want to open this latch and disconnect the screen connector. we then want to unroute this cable, so making note of how it goes in around here to get back to the hinge with these little guides for the cable. So we unroute that like so. At the other end we have an aerial connector, so we can disconnect that from the wireless card, and again just paying attention to how it routes to the card there, we can unwind that wire. Next we have screws on each of the hinges, so 3 screws on this side, 2 screws on this side, which we are going to remove. For this other hinge we also have to remove the wireless card. I've gone to a size O screwdriver for that bit as it was a little stiff with the double O. And under there we will find the 3rd screw for the hinge. With that done, we can then again get our pry tool in under the hinge, pull the hinge open, and then slide, unroute the cable on each side, and slide the base of the laptop away from the screen. So with the display now separated off, it is time to remove the bezel and get access to the panel. And what we're going to do is take our pry tool, and we don't have to be too worried about the display here because it is already damaged and we have our replacement ready to go in. And what we want to do is just get the pry tool in between the screen and the bezel and just begin working our way around to release that. So we want to just push it in just slightly and just lift the bezel up to unclip it. There is a little bit of adhesive tape just on the surround of the screen, which I think helps it keep in place, so you may find you're sort of cutting through that a little bit. Obviously, if your screen is all intact, you'll want to be very careful not to damage or scratch the panel itself. Like I say, this one is has a big crack in the internals of it, so I am not too worried about the actual panel itself. So, having got so far, we're just going to run the pry tool down on the outside now, and just sort of pulling up as we go along. And now we're going to get to the bottom, and I believe they put quite a adhesive strip along here, so we need to basically cut through that with the pry tool. The fact that the bezel extends all the way right into the corner of the hinge here is why I like to take this off, and also because the screen itself is stuck in with adhesive strips. So just not having the actual laptop in the way makes things a lot easier to deal with. So we are working our way along, just trying to cut through the adhesive at the bottom of the panel. And then we can start again to just work our way along. This bottom hinge piece has lifted as well, so that will come out the way, and we can see this goes underneath it. And so now we can lift free the bezel as well. So because the screen is stuck in with this adhesive underneath it, what we need to do is find these end points for it. And we are going to just lift underneath the end of the tab with a pry tool. With some tweezers, we are then going to try and just lift that and begin to pull. And what we want to do is just very slowly and gently keep pulling this tab. And I find the best bet is just pull a little and then grip it further down again. And gently just pull this adhesive strip out from underneath it. This one is coming out quite well. You can sometimes find these strips will break under the panel, in which case you'll kind of have to get underneath and try and cut through it with your pry tool. If you have a functional panel, you're really going to want to try and get it out with the strip, as otherwise if you're getting underneath it and leveraging at the panel, you run the risk of cracking it. So this first one was removed really nicely. And so we are going to then attempt on the other side. So here again, we get our pry tool underneath to try and lift. Once we are then underneath it, we get our tweezers onto the end to pull it out, and then again gently pulling on it, working the adhesive strip out from underneath. And once that finishes pulling free, our screen should be easy to remove. So with the screen now freed from its adhesive, I have turned the panel round just so it's facing away from us, and what we're going to do is just get in to lift the panel up and stand it upright so that we can access the display connector cable here. So we need to peel down this label and then disconnect the screen from the EDP connector there. For our replacement, we then have some more adhesive pull strips. Now with these, I've bought some replacement strips. Now these are a little short, so they don't stick out the top and bottom. So what we're going to do is I've cut them in half, and I'm going to position one at the top, and then the other sticking out slightly at the bottom so we can reach both ends of it. Doing the same on the other end, we again place the strip so the top is accessible, and then the bottom just coming in here, and then we want to peel the coating off of these. You can obviously use just a generic double-sided tape, and obviously if you're doing that you're not going to be able to peel it out, but assuming you're working with faulty panels when you're removing things, that shouldn't be too much of an issue. We can then take our replacement panel, and keeping it clear of the adhesive, we want to reconnect the display cable, making sure it clips into place properly. And then we want to carefully align it at the bottom, centered into the frame, and then allow it to press down into place on the adhesive. Don't need to worry too much about touching that for the moment because it does have this coating of peelable film on the top, so we can just gently press it down into the adhesive. To ensure proper fitment of the bezel, we're then going to take this thin double-sided tape and run this along the bottom of the display. Cutting to the correct length. Before peeling the coating off. We can then take our protective film off the screen. We need to do this before replacing the bezel so that we don't trap it in place. Then we can refit the bezel to the top assembly. Pressing it down gently all the way around. There are clips at the bottom, but having this adhesive just ensures a flush fitment to the actual panel. So we're going to make sure all of that looks correctly in place. Before refitting our hinge cover. And with that all done, we are now ready to refit the assembly onto the machine. So to do this, we take the base or palm rest and we are going to slide it back into place. We are then going to begin routing our cables. So first of all, the wireless antenna, we are going to press in to its original cable route. And the EDP cable. With those in place, we can then push down to close up the hinges, making sure they are properly aligned with the screw connectors and these little positioning pins. Before going around and refitting the screws to each hinge. We can then refit our wireless card, slotting it into place, screwing it down, and finally reconnecting the aerial antenna. These are quite fiddly to reconnect, but if you've managed everything else so far, you should be able to manage this. Best thing I find to do is try and align it with the connector as best as possible, and then press down to snap it on. With the tip of your pry tool. So now we are ready to reconnect our battery, positioning that back onto the connector and refitting the 5 screws. We can then take our base panel and put it back onto the machine. We then want to flip things over, open it up and begin to press around the edge of the palm rest to clip the chassis back together. With that done, we can then click things back over and refit these screws and what is left of our rubber strips, as one was already broken, but we will refit these into place. I hope you found this video useful. If you have, do consider giving us a like, or if you want to contribute to the running of this channel, maybe hit the super thanks button if you'd like to make a contribution. Do subscribe if you'd like to see more videos as we post them, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching.